take confidence acts just from the performance. The overriding feeling is still the disappointment of playing that well and losing the game. We were punished twice. I think 90% of what we did on Saturday was of a very high standard. And sometimes it's not what you do, it's what you get away with as well. But we were punished twice by Sheffield Wednesday. The result ultimately is everything. What we want to do is play like we did on Saturday and win the game.
I get the feeling that with everybody available, Clough's side won't be too far away from creating something good. That's if they can replicate the formation and style from Hillsborough on Saturday. The trouble is that if is a very big one, as Clough's comments about the January transfer window leave a lot to be debated. True though that there's still a fair way to go before then, as tonight we'll reflect on an FA Cup exit, ponder potential progression in the Papa Johns, that's far too many P's for my liking at this time of night, and keep half an eye on getting back to basics in the league as we welcome Colchester United to the One Call Stadium on Saturday afternoon. As always, this is the place for you to have your say on your team in the comments of the live feed. You know what to do by now. This is the show for the fans by the fans. This is the Mansfield Matters podcast. You know, they say in football it's difficult to not be disappointed sometimes, and having just seen the FA Cup draw, Sheffield Wednesday drawing Newcastle at home, it's hard not to be sitting here now thinking, what if we could actually defend a football? I'm sure we'll delve into that over the next hour or so right here on the Mansfield Matters podcast. Hello, good evening, good morning, whenever it is that you're listening or watching this. Hope that you're doing all right. Welcome back to another episode of the Mansfield Matters podcast, where tonight we're going to be talking all things FA Cup, all things Papa John's Trophy, and all things Sky Bet League 2. A little bit of everything thrown in for you over the next hour or so. As always, we want you guys to have your say on your team, so get involved in the comments right now with whatever it is you want to talk about from a Mansfield Town perspective. Now, before I introduce tonight's guests, those who are watching the video version of this and might be thinking, those that have got sort of eagle eyes, might be thinking, something looks a little bit different in your setup, Craig. Well, yes, it does. I've moved the camera forward. I'm perched on a table. I've got my laptop on top of a printer. It's very, very precariously placed because it is true. The rumours are true. Mansfield Matters HQ is being taken down bit by bit and being moved somewhere else. So follow me on social media if you want to know what all that's about. So that does mean that half of my stuff is in boxes on where I'd usually have the camera. So I'm going to try and not move the camera too much tonight. But yes, there you go. Right, enough of my waffle. Let's introduce other members of the Mansfield Matters podcast panel. Let's say hello. Good evening to Clive, the midwife Parkin. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody. Yes, I didn't actually deliver the child. I was simply a taxi. But I'm glad to be here. I thought I might be delayed at Kingsmill, but I've got away on time.
Well, there you go. It's a pleasure to have you alongside us as well. One man who is also joining us tonight is Mr. Alan Wilson. Hello and good evening to him.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, Clive. Good evening, everybody.
And that is not it. That is not all we've got. Let's talk all about... Let's head over to somewhere else in the country and complete a fantastic four. Is it going to be Nathan? Is it going to be Cam? Is it going to be Nick of Mansfield Town Shirts fame? It's Hollyoaks, man.
Oh, that's rude.
You all right?
Very rude. Hang on. Hang on. Am I there?
You're there. We can hear you. Can you hear us? There you go. It's because
I can hear somebody's television on.
It's because you listen to too many things at once. Right, we're going to come back to you. Give me a nod in the chat when you're ready. We're going to come back to you later on. He's doing something else, so we'll ignore him for now. And let's say hello to Alan and Clive. Cam's, if you want to know what he's doing, it's the Women's FA Cup third round draw. So he's doing his bit for his uni. And what have you, so he's busy doing that at the minute. We'll come back to him later when he gives us a nod. I've taken him off screen for now, so we don't need to look at him. Right, where shall we start? Let's start at Hillsborough on Saturday afternoon, Clive. And do you know what? Let's start with the cup draw. if only we could defend, eh?
It's no point. There's no point crying over it. We gave a tremendously good account of ourselves at Hillsborough. I have absolutely no problem with the performance. The result was disappointing, and the goals were, the sort of goals we have been shipping, unfortunately. But you could trace them back to Harbottle getting injured, and then bringing their 2-star players on. So I'd have to say I didn't expect us to win. My forecast was we were going to get beat quite comfortably, and as it turns out, we should have probably won that game.
There's something about the FA Cup, Alan, isn't it, there, where Mansfield just raise their game, especially when it's up against the League One sides.
They seem to, yeah. Obviously, I couldn't go, so I was listening in, and I was in the middle of Nottingham and shouting and roping when I realised that we'd scored the first goal. Really happy about that. And then I was in Victoria Centre coming through, not far away from the concert hall where we're going to the concert for later on, and realised that we'd gone 2-1 down. I'd just seen somebody who I knew from Mansfield. And he says, it's good news, isn't it, Al? I says, not at the moment. I says, we've just gone 2-1 down. So, it was a bit disappointing. But, yeah, very disappointing.
For a minute, I had visions of you, sat doing your Santa business and then just going, wait there, little child. Santa just needs to check in on the Mansfield score.
No, not on Saturday.
You missed a good game, Alan. I mean, you missed a game. You'd have been pleased to have been there. It was good football played by Mansfield. The first half we dominated right the way through, and arguably we ought to have been, a couple of goals to good at the half time. But that's football. I'd rather lose that 1-2-1 than next week at Stevenage. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think the league is of definite importance for us at the moment. Stags Chat in the comments says, I think we did really well. The fans were fantastic once again. Yeah, and it always is, isn't it, Clough? When we take a following like that, the noise is always immense. And despite the way we played at Harrogate, where I expected there to be a little bit of backlash for that, at the end, even though we'd conceded 2 goals in suspect manner, yeah, you can talk about their quality coming off the bench, but still, we should be defending better than what we did. We all stayed at the end, gave them a rapturous round of applause. Even the subs who didn't get on got a nice little round of applause.
Yeah, because we were held back for a while after the game, which was quite the right thing to do as well. But there were a lot of us still in the stadium when the players and the subs came out for a warm, what do you call it, a warm down.
Cool down,
warm down, yeah.
Yeah, and they were running up and down the pitch, and they were getting rapturous applause every time they came up to the Leppings Lane end stand. But I mean, it was a privilege to be amongst the very nearly 4,000 Mansfield fans there on Saturday. It was the sort of event we like, and the cup brings it out. And I think we didn't let the players didn't let that 4,000 people down on the day. I just thought we needed a little bit more luck than we actually had, and perhaps a little bit more class than we've got at the back. But if we'd have played like that the previous week, we'd have murdered Harrogate.
You see, and that's where the debate starts, isn't it, Alan? That's the frustrating thing, because we switch to a back 4. We play, all right, we get Riley Harbottle back in, which we'll talk about later on, to give us a little bit more youth and stability back there. But we go to a back 4, we seem a lot more settled and we seem a lot more fluid. The questions that Marks are raised, was Nigel Clough once bitten, twice shy when it came to his team selection at Sheffield Wednesday? Because on paper, it could well have been a back 5, but to be fair to him, he went with the 4.
Yeah, when I saw the team, I was hoping it would be a 4, because I was just wondering why he hadn't played Page. But obviously, in the interview after that, now we know why, because he'd got a bit of a knock and he wasn't going to risk him. But it looked a decent team to me, and I was pleased when we'd gone one in. And I was hoping, I was confident that my 1-1 score, it was going to come to fruition when they equalised. But obviously, they just got the winner, and that was it.
It looked like it was going your way at one time.
Yeah.
The very late goal destroyed it. But I tell you what, I mean, my man of the match was Lapsley on the day, but I think Quinn had a good game. He played the whole game, didn't he, Craig? And he was up for it.
Well,
He never
Sheffield
stopped.
United, didn't he?
Yeah, he got extra motivation, I think, but he
Yeah.
was, he had a decent game, and he hasn't played that well lately, in my opinion. But he, well, partly because he runs out of energy, but he stuck to his task, and he actually should have scored a couple of goals.
Yeah, I also put that down to, playing a more favourable midfield for him. I still think that there are certain players that don't play well in the system which Clough has set up with a long time now. And I think one of those is Stephen Quinn. When there's a back four, he seems to have a little bit more fluidity and space in midfield, which is, I think, a real key driver for us, Alan. And it's something which I'd like to see a little bit more of. But I do wonder whether we'll try and experiment with that again come Wednesday night at Everton, or whether we'll revert to type.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll, he'll see the fruition of what happened on Saturday, and he'll keep it going, hopefully. But obviously there'll be a few different players playing than there were Saturday. But it did say the whole first team squad were going, so it might be mix and match it, change if need be. But I'm really looking forward to Wednesday. I'm actually being able to go away for a change.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Let's go back to Hillsborough, though, Clive, and talk about the performance. As always, if you're watching the live feed, feel free to get involved and have your say on your team. We mentioned it briefly there, Lewis Page not being available for Sheffield Wednesday after picking up a little bit of a knock in the Notts County game. Bit of a shame because it would have given us that extra little bit of left-sided balance, and it might have freed up Ollie Hawkins to go up top. But, as it were, I think we need to give another honourable mention and another hats off to Mr. Mansfield Town. He's becoming Mr. Flexibility, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Hewitt.
Yep, absolutely. He's more resistant to injury than the rest of the squad as well. But he does give us that degree of confidence down his side of the defence. And he's very quick to help out where there's problems to the side of him as well. And of course, when he does get the chance, he can make really good progress down the flanks. And I just think that doesn't make him the best wing back in the world. Of course it doesn't, but it does give us that bit of versatility that a club like ours needs. And playing with a four, I think it suits him well.
Well, let's bring back Cam. He seems to have done what he was doing. It's a good job I had him off camera, because I had a horrible, only you could see this, I had a horrible shot of his arse crack then for a second when he was manoeuvring his chair. Thank goodness he was off the live stream. Cam, Sheffield Wednesday. Disappointing result or expected?
No, expected, obviously, because you think the form that they're in, the players that they've got, and nearly all of us, except Alan, thought we were going to get beat, and we always thought we was going to get hammered. And it's what you expect, but it's the FA Cup. It depends on who turned up, and we turned up, and it's so bitterly disappointing that we played so well for 83 minutes and then threw it away in that fashion. But it's just a credit to the players, because you look at the players that Sheff Wednesday had to bring on to be able to win that game, if not two of the best players in their division, if not Barry Bannon being the best in the division, probably one of the best players at championship level as well when he was with Sheffield United in the championship. So we've got to be heartened by the fact that they literally had to bring out their best players to be able to get past us. And from what I was listening on the commentary, it just sounded like the players put 100% in. Nobody particularly wilted, and nobody lost that bit of energy until sort of like late on, and then they just hit us. But that's the golfing class that you come up with. But like you lads were saying, yeah, if we'd have played like that last week against Harrogate, then we'd have battered them. But football's a funny old game, and you can't win everything. But it's just so frustrating when we know we can play like that, and we put performance in like Harrogate or Bradford or Swindon. But frustration, inconsistency. It's the word. That's a new buzzword for us. Inconsistency, because that's all Mansfield Town is.
I'd love to be able to ring the bell at that, but it's in a box somewhere. There you go. Alan, I think Cam made a valid point there, and I think it's interesting to sort of see which way it goes on this. Do we take heart from the fact that it was a much improved performance and we can take a lot away from the Sheffield Wednesday game, or do we take another mugload of frustration at the fact that in all of those games that Cam mentioned there, especially at Harrogate last week, we didn't do what we are clearly capable of?
There's times, Craig, when even if you think about, as daft as it sounds, Mansfield District Council, and you're doing the bins, I'm doing my regular job. There's times when things go to plan, and there's times when they don't. Now, FA Cup seems to be the good thing for Mansfield Town, especially when you're playing a League One side or, a team that's way above us. Because like Cam said, they had to bring their big guns on to actually beat us in the end. And it sounds as though it was a really good performance. But I just, it is frustrating because why can't they do that week in, week out? We know they had players that are injured. Like I said before on the podcast, I'll stick to my guns and say that, once the players are back and we start getting some sort of fluidity, we will be a team to be reckoned with. And somebody will get, if not just 1, 2 or 3 teams are going to get a good hiding. But I know what you're saying. It is frustrating because you saw firsthand how we can play.
Is it a worry, though, Cam, that we have to rely on 3-4 players to come in and to turn that switch? Riley Harbottle comes back in to the back four and straight away we seem a lot more solid and a lot more comfortable. Stephen McLaughlin comes back in on the left-hand side and we get a little bit of left-sided balance. Reece Oates comes on for 20 minutes and, is looking lively. And when he's back available to start again, it'll be different. But we shouldn't be relying on 3 or 4 players to be that way, should we? We should have it throughout the routes of the side, no matter what 11 we put out. And I think that is one of the frustrating things that I take away from Saturday.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a tough one for Clough because obviously he's got players that are playing genuinely really, really well. But we've also got injuries to contend with. And obviously it's nowhere near as bad as what it has been previously. You think back to the start of last season and the amount of players that we had missing through injury, suspension, whatever. So we're quite fortunate that you think about it. We've actually only got 2 players out injured that are part of the main squad. Lewis Page, we've not really seen anything of him. Yes, he's injured and he played that county cup game, but he's been brought in to bolster the squad. Granted, it's only for a month just to see how things pan out, or maybe it's just a stopgap because there might be someone available in January. But we've got players playing out of position. We've got players that aren't clearly comfortable playing the way that we were, playing that 5 across the back. We just seem to be all over the place. And it's just frustrating because, there's been a few teams where we're thinking like, right, well, we're going to go out and get a result in, and we've not. But point proven Saturday, there's more than enough in our squad to be able to pull off a result. You're thinking, come forward to this weekend, depending on who plays on Wednesday night away at Everton, you're probably thinking Colchester are one of these sides that probably should be getting an absolute hiding because they're not on the best run of form. They're not the best team in the league. They're by far one of the worst. And you think this is. I know people don't like this statistic, but expected goals. At the last I saw, we were at the top, somewhat like top 3, if not the top. And it's just the amount of chances that we're creating to the amount that we should be scoring. But how many of them we're actually scoring? Hardly any, because we're not putting teams to the sword. We create all these chances and we just not finish them off. You think back to Rochdale, hammered them for most of the game, only scored 1 goal, couldn't get any more. It's frustrating, but swings and roundabouts. It's no quick fix, and Clough's got a difficult choice week in, week out to choose who's playing because you've got players that are playing well, but you've got players that are playing out of position. So where do you sit on the fence?
Did Harbottle play on the right-hand side?
Of the 2, yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah, because he's most comfortable there.
Yeah.
He's said that before, so that makes a difference.
I
don't think it's just coincidence. The first goal we conceded, he got injured.
Yeah,
of course he was off then, and the second goal he wasn't there, and he went through the same part of the structure, and I think we've missed his agility alongside the lack of agility of people like Perch. And I think that our backline will only work if we can get some younger people alongside the old Crocs. And when we can, it works. And certainly, I share and see Paul comment out as I would go along with that. But of course, you can't change that overnight either. Age brings experience, so we should be able to mix the two together. In all fairness, I just whittle on about it because it seems to surprise me just how many of these players in our squad are so brittle, made of chalk.
They are, and it is a bit of a concern. It certainly is a concern. I just want to touch a little bit more upon Riley Harbottle, Clive, because he has been a breath of fresh air for us this season. He's dangerous from set pieces when we're on the attack. Yeah. He looks solid at the back. He brings us that little bit of youth, that little bit of energy that we need. And if I was if I was Simon Clough and the recruitment team, I'd be knocking on the door or getting on FaceTime or Zoom or whatever they use to contact the chairman and say, "Can we have a check, please?"
He's got a 4-year contract at Notts Forest.
Yeah, but you can buy him. 4-year contract don't mean you can't buy him, does it?
I can't. Well, I mean, I could be wrong, but can you see him coming when you've still got 4 years of a Premier League club?
Well,
it depends whether he foresees himself breaking into the Premier League club. There'll be a Championship League next year, I think. But they've got about 60 players, haven't they? I mean, the lad's got less chance of shining there than he is by moving from there to another club, and that other club might as well be us if the finances permit, and if the player wants to do it, and if Forest are prepared to play ball. There's lots of ifs in there, but I'd like to see him on our books. I think he's a young player that's going to get better, and he's nothing at all.
Yeah, he certainly is. I think he's certainly been a talent that's impressed me since he's come in, Cam, and I think it is another one that we're heavily reliant on, and it's just a shame that, like Clive says, he seems to be relatively brittle because he pulls up in the lead up to the first goal. If he doesn't pull up, we don't concede it, and then we probably don't concede the second, to be fair. But it's now will be a question of how long is he going to be out for?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Harbottle because he went through an absolute stinker of a phase. You think back to Hartlepool away, Hartlepool at home. Sorry, both goals were a result of his mistakes. He had a shocker at Crawley, then got injured, then got taken off, but there's been other games where he's been fantastic. So inconsistency. It's a running theme in our squad, but when he has performed, he's been fantastic because we've got players that need to complement each other, and I think with a lot of our players, we've been playing square pegs in round holes for much of the season. So I think finding a balance that works is also competitive is the key thing. But with Harbottle being so young, it benefits us because does he know? Has he got a set way of playing? Realistically, probably not. He's a bit more flexible. You think Perch and O'Toole, especially, you're thinking older type of players, been in the game a long time. They'll know the way that they like to play. So yes, he's not our player, but why not take Harbottle and just mould him to the way that we're wanting and the sort of player that we're wanting him to be?
Yeah, go on, Alan.
Go on, sorry, Craig. I was just saying it's shades of Hewitt, isn't it? When he first came, Hewitt had quite a few stinkers and he couldn't, do anything right and people were on his back. But he came good. And now, like Clive has said before, this season is about the best player.
You've not got your teeth in tonight, Alan?
No.
Is that what you were trying to tell us earlier? Where, you had a bad day at work and you dropped your teeth into some bins?
I mean, to be fair, my first name is a difficult one to get out, isn't it? I mean, come on.
Especially when you've got Craig, Clive, and Cam.
The 3 C's.
Right, Triple H, Triple C.
That's it. Better than Triple H, though. Right, let's move on. And I want to touch upon this comment from Paul, because Nigel Clough has made an interesting comment today. Paul says, Clough has his favourites. That's why we will never do anything. And come January, I bet you now he won't bring anyone in. Now, I don't think for a second that the performance at Sheffield Wednesday is enough to rocket us on to turn our form around. I think there's still a lot of answers that need to be had, because it's clear that when we're missing those 4 or 5 names which you've mentioned, we're nowhere near good enough, we're nowhere near strong enough. And I'm in also agreement of the fact we've got too many old players within the squad. And one thing I want to see us do, if we're going to be serious, is to invest in January and look to bring players in, whether that be on loan to get us through to the end of the season, or look to invest longer term as football clubs do. But Nigel Clough has said today, and I quote, "I don't think the answers lay outside of the squad. I think they lay within." Well, for me, I don't know. I find that a little bit strange and frustrating, Cam, because I do believe the answers lay outside the squad in making 1 or 2 additions in key areas to give us that extra little bit of comfort, fluidity, youth, pace, experience that we so clearly need. Because one performance which was probably a 7 out of 10 at Sheffield Wednesday ain't going to get us to a top 3 position. We're not nowhere near as where we were last season.
No, we're not. And obviously missing players like Stephen McLaughlin, Reece Oates is a big miss. But we've got enough quality in this squad, and we've proved this season in other games that we've got the quality to win games. And it's just frustrating that compared to previous seasons where the big games we'd actually turn up, the big games that we've played so far this season, all but most of Saturday and then maybe the Derby game back in the Carabao. Other than that, we've not turned up when we played Bradford. We're not turned up when we played Swindon, and we're just so. It's ridiculous to think we're so much further ahead than we were last season, but you'd feel like in the squad quality-wise, we're nowhere near. And I don't know whether that's because the league's got stronger or just that we've just not got worse, but plateaued. We've not carried on improving. Like, talking to Jason Harrison after the game at Wembley, I was saying we don't need a whole squad changes. I know I want to cry about it as well, but I was saying we don't need a whole squad of new players. We just need to improve on what we've got, and we've not brought anybody that's. You've got Boateng that's come in, you've got Harbottle that's come in, you've got Swan that's come in, but 3 players isn't enough, and Pim. Yeah, and so 4 players isn't enough to think, right, well, you get my point. Like we've not strengthened.
Yeah,
where we've needed to strengthen, where we've strengthened is not where we've needed the players.
No, you're right, Cam.
Doesn't count.
I think the reason we shipped a bad result against Bradford and other clubs is that they recognise where our weakness lies. When we are playing the back line that we have had to play, it's patently obvious to any scout that it's too slow. And so pump the ball into the areas where they won't catch the faster players, and we're in trouble. And we've seen that happen so many times now. We got well beaten by Swindon because they were much more fluid and pacey. And Bradford just did enough, in my opinion, by recognising our weakness to take them off us. But
I think, go on.
I don't think we're as bad as we can sometimes say. I think we just haven't had enough of the right players available, and it's as simple as that.
I think what Cam was saying, and I agree to some respect, is the fact that we haven't added in terms of numerical players. We've just replaced like for like almost. We've just filled slots, and I don't think that's the way to be progressive as a club. I mean, people might turn around and say, well, this particular club haven't gone anywhere either. But Salford, prime example, they recognise where they need to add, and they're not just replacing when one goes out, they're bringing one in. They're bringing players in to build a squad to try and push on. And I firmly believe that if they'd have stuck with Gary Bowyer in the summer, they'd have probably been a lot higher up in the table than where they are now, and they probably would have done it this year, and they would have had consistency from the top. We've done the opposite. We've got consistency in the back room from the top, but what we've not got is that constant airflow coming through to support the players. It's almost like we've gone with a set number of 18, 19, and come hell or high water, that will do. And I don't think that's the way to get out of this division. All right, people could turn around and say, well, if Oates had not got injured, if McLaughlin had not got injured, you are going to encounter injuries at some point in the season. And knowing our luck, as they have done, they all come at the right time. And we are never prepared, in my opinion, for those eventualities. It's always make, do, and mend rather than make, do, and build. And I just think come January, Alan, for me, I want to see that little bit of belief, that investment. I get why it's not fair, because football's a business, and with everything that's happened over the last couple of years, you can't always be like that. But I just think that extra, Adam Murray used to say, those extra 1-2% make a hell of a difference come the end of the season with the longevity of things.
I can agree to a certain point, but I think when you take Oates out of the equation, apart from Swan, who's not the finished article yet, mind you, neither is Oates to that respect, but I mean, is a better prospect than in the goal scoring stakes when he's on form, when he's on fire, than probably what Swan is. Or we've had Akins up there. When we've had McLaughlin out, we've had to have people who don't play in that position taking his position. And I think that's part of the problem. It's same as what you said, you've got to have at least another good understudy to take over when the other one drops out. It's like actors, isn't it? They have an understudy, but you've got to have somebody who can do the job. And I think
Alan,
that's where we've, come up against problems, because we haven't had the right people in the right places.
Sorry, Alan, this is about recruitment again, isn't it? We in the summer, we identified we got some weaknesses at the back line. We knew we were a bit light on the strike force. And what did we do? We shipped in a load of midfield players. And Clough's seems to be that if they're good enough, they can play anywhere. Well, occasionally they do. But generally speaking, you don't put square pegs in round holes. And I have to say that if he wants to run a squad size the size he's got, and I believe it's too short, I think we should have more players available, then they've all got to be fair. They've all got to be available to him, especially the amount of dependency that our game plan has on probably only 2 key individual positions. Take them out through illness, injury, suspension, whatever, loss of form. We haven't got your understudy ready, and that's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
And we haven't got at this point any product from our youth development to bring through. And so you're running with too tight a ship. And then throw into that mix that 3 or 4 of the players are reaching towards the end of their workable careers. And then some of the acquisitions have yet to prove themselves, if ever they will. I don't find it at all surprising that we're hitting and missing.
Let's answer Nigel Clough's question then, or turn Nigel Clough's quote into a question. He said, I don't think the answers lay outside of the squad. I think they lay within. So I'm going to ask you all the same question. Where do the answers lie in terms of January progressing this team, this club up to the next level of League One football? Do they lay outside of the squad, or do they lay within the squad, which we've got at this current moment, at this current time, the 28th of November, 2022, 8:05 in the evening? Cam first.
I genuinely don't know.
Great insight, guys.
I don't know.
I knew you
There's
brought
so
him
many...
on for a reason.
I genuinely don't know. There's so much I'd want to change, but
list it.
I'd probably say you need new striker, maybe probably 2 strikers, to be honest. If sod it, we're going with 2 strikers, and you're probably thinking maybe a bit more of an attacking-minded midfielder, because obviously Lapsley can't do it on his own. Maris is brilliant, but we're playing him far too defensive. But that just seems to where the rest of the team works well. New back, new centre back, new centre back, new right back.
So Cam essentially wants a new 11. Alan, inside or outside of the squad? Where do the answers lie?
I think inside, when we've got the chance to get rid of the injuries and players start playing and performing as they do, but there's nothing to stop them, if available, a couple of new additions. If you can.
Outside then.
So to clarify that, Alan's answers lie by sitting on the fence. Clive, what about you?
No, hold on a minute. You asked the question. I'm not sitting on any fence because I'll get splinters in my backside. I think it stops on the inside. I think we're good enough. We've got a good enough squad to get where we need to be for this season. But all I'm saying is it's same as anything else. If there's a chance of a player that comes available, why not take it?
Clive.
Outside, I think we need at the very least a good, competent defender and an out-and-out striker.
I mean, I'm going to answer my own question. I agree. I think the answers personally do lie on the outside. It's clear to me that I don't think James Perch is going to get past this season. John Joe O'Toole looks to be continually struggling with not playing regular football, and I think at some point he's going to get annoyed, and that will become a problem for the dressing room. McLaughlin clearly has got some injury worries which need to be closely monitored, and Lewis Page, who we brought in, is a great addition on paper, but also comes with a history of injuries, and so we need to certainly address that area. Stephen Quinn's another one who will, likely not see past the end of this season. Lucas Akins is coming to the end of his career. It's another thing with that. Jordan Bowery's coming to the end as well. I think we've got too many players who fall into that older age bracket that we're going to have to replace. So for me, I think the answers lie on the outside. Mark in the comments mentions Danny Johnson. Don't even bother. He's not going to put on a Mansfield shirt again. He'll be another one of those players, a little bit like Andy Cook and Leanne Gall, and inevitably Danny Rose in a couple of weeks as well. When when we eventually sell him, he plays against us and he'll score every time. Alan.
I'm going to say, can we get money for Johnson?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So Johnson's loan is up in January rather than it being a season-long loan. So therefore, in January, he will become a Mansfield player again who will be transfer listed. And if he's to join another club in that window, then someone will have to pay for his services. The danger we will have is whether a club looks at it and goes, well, he's out of contract in the summer, so we'll offer him a pre-contract agreement now, let him sit in the reserves and keep himself ticking over, and we'll take him for nothing. That's the danger we've got, especially given his goal-to-game ratio and his current form. My inkling would be, given the form that he's in, that clubs won't want to gamble on him not playing football again for 6 months, and we'll inevitably pay the money, but he won't be in a Mansfield shirt again.
I think in reality, he's worth more now than he was at the start of the season when we entered into the agreement with Walsall, because he's banged some goals in. He's going to be worth more to them now. He's proved himself to them, and other clubs have seen what he's done. There's a shortage of good quality out and out strikers out there. We're probably the only club that's not interested in him. So I think he'll command a reasonable fee, and whether it's that money to invest in new players or not, I don't know. The trouble is, I feel sorry for our recruitment team because there can't be that many more players at Burton Albion available.
Says it every week.
Paul, I never get tired of it.
I know. Paul in the comments says, does David Sharp help or hinder with the transfers? It's an interesting one because when he initially came in, his role was more football based. His role now as CEO is more overarching club based. But what he does on a day to day, we're not sure. I know he does sort of help with the transfer side of things in terms of getting deals over the line. I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that question until we sort of get a fly on the wall documentary. So there you go. Right, let's turn our attention elsewhere. Papa Luigi's Cup on Wednesday night. Cam, a trip to Everton, Goodison Park. Really looking forward to it. Of course, the ironic thing would have been if we'd have got through in the FA Cup on Saturday, and then we'd have drawn Everton away. We could still get a trip there next season, but it's highly, the numerical factors on it, the possibility percentages and all that, not that high. But Wednesday night trip to Goodison Park, Everton under 21s. Nigel Clough says that they're one of the best academies sides that are in the country at the moment. It'll be a very, very good test on a very, very big pitch. Should be a good evening, but a big opportunity for the players who haven't played to show what they can do, especially Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Perch.
I think so.
Yeah.
But, it comes under the heading of the under 21s again, doesn't it? And, how speedy are they on the flanks and, in between? But we've got to counteract that. Like Swindon did, they've only got to watch the previous game. Sheff Wednesday, they might have a different, but if they watch Swindon games and Bradford, they'll get an idea that they've obviously had scouts there, so they'll know where to counteract our defence. But we've got to stop people doing that. We've got people like Hartigan who's going to be playing. Oates will be playing. So it's not all doom and gloom.
It's an interesting one, Cam, because from a mentality point of view, we don't want to go there and lose, because that would then make it 3 successive defeats.
Yeah, it would. And winning breeds confidence, and it's a Mansfield side that lives on confidence. You look the last few games that we have played, and we've just looked flat. I didn't go to Harrogate because I'd got other plans, but my dad was messaging me. He was just saying it's just a bit boring. It's just boring. Nothing really happening. Nobody really creating anything, and that's the frustrating thing, because we've got so many players that can create something. You look at Hartigan, Maris, Lapsley, Oates. Obviously, Oates injured, but still able to create something when they are playing. And the frustrating thing is, like we were saying before, we've got the quality in the squad, but when you've lost that many on the bounce, you're thinking, right, we've gone back to the same old Mansfield as the start of last season, and just can't buy a win. But we know that we are able to win games, and we are able to put in good performances, and we just need to go out there and do it. And what's the harm in playing a full strength squad against Everton on Wednesday night and just trying something new, try a different formation, try a different style of play? Because it's not like we're playing on a really bobbly pitch or whatever. We're playing on going to be one of the best pitches we've probably ever played on. So we could try playing fast, fluid football if we wanted to. We could play hoofball. We could do whatever. Well, now's the time to change what we've been doing. Try something different. If it doesn't work, then at least you've tried it. But we can't keep playing the same football that we have been doing.
It's a difficult quandary for Nigel Clough on Wednesday night, Clive, because he's already basically named the side. It's those who didn't start on Saturday, which was of course 9 players, being the FA Cup rulings. So then he'll only have to keep 2 in from what it was. Those 9 players, having been on the bench, will qualify for the whole X amount of players that featured in your last squad sort of thing as well. So that will coincide with the rules. Do you play players to get the minutes in the tank, which is, of course, what this competition is essentially designed for some clubs? Or do you, like Cam says, mix it up a little bit to a degree, but try and go with the strongest 11 as possible to try and find some consistency, some sort of form, especially considering how well we played in the first probably 70 minutes at Hillsborough on Saturday, with that back 4, fluid midfield and fluid forward line?
Yes, absolutely. At our level, playing against Premiership Academy side, the only thing we can do is to use it as a building exercise, in others reinforcing what we're already doing. And we had a decent game on Hillsborough. Let's do a bit. Let's push that further. Let's involve a few of the players that didn't manage to get pitch time at Hillsborough. I can't see any sense at all in trying to be over flamboyant or adopt a different strategy, because I can't see what that does for us the following week. What I do like about this competition, I'm not a big fan of it, but when we've played the academy sides, I'm thinking of Manchester City and Derby, their lads come to play football. They don't come to clog. They don't come to time waste. They come to play football. Their coaches are there watching and they know that the only way they're going to make progress in their careers is by playing football. And other things come game later on. And it's refreshing to see. And it's almost as refreshing as seeing the South Korean fans picking their own litter up in the World Cup. I just think we just need to use this as an added game to bring our team back together. And let's see whether a team which is a bit of a hybrid can play as well as we think it can. I personally think it'll be a good game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we won it.
Well, we'll wait and see. We'll get predictions later on. I think it's going to be an interesting night. If you were in Nigel Clough's shoes, Alan, what would you be doing? Would you be naming the 9 that didn't start on Saturday plus 2 more to make an 11, or would you be looking at the entirety of your squad, taking out of your mind the consideration of those who need minutes and trying to build some consistency? Minutes versus consistency.
Minutes.
Interesting. Why?
Personally, minutes. I just think they'll need them because it's a long season, Craig, and the more minutes they get in the tank, they can only gain confidence because we know, we've said it times many on this podcast and even tonight, we know they've got it. We know they've got the ability. They don't come, like somebody said in the comments, Martin Barker, they don't come bad players overnight. They just need confidence and a bit of a run in the team. And I'm not so sure of Perch because he's just too slow, in my opinion. But O'Toole, I think he needs game time. Perch maybe put him right back and not so much in the defence. I know if you go pacey winger, but you can counteract that with people in front of him, if that makes sense. So it's just, in my opinion, it'd be minutes and get to, like he played Macca before, and drop Macca in. Obviously, he can't this time, but put somebody in who has been playing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Even Hawkins up front.
Yeah, I think there's more chance of Adam Collin playing central midfield than Hawkins playing up front on Wednesday night. But you never know, you lot. Martin in the comments says, just a question. How can people say O'Toole is no good anymore? This time last year, we were competing with other clubs for his contract. Do you guys think he's got the contract and not bothered anymore? I, for one, was a big fan of him. Do you think he needs the skinhead bold look again? Simple bit to that last bit, yes, because O'Toole looking thug-like scared the SH1T out of everyone going and just added to the O'Toole character which we needed. On the other point, Cam, in terms of him getting his contract and thinking he's not bothered anymore, I couldn't think there's nothing further from the truth. I've watched his body language, in warm downs after a game when he's been running up and down as a sub. He looks so annoyed not to be playing. I just think with this season, the critics which have come his way, and I've said it before, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, come because we forget this as well. He's not a natural centre half like many of the other players that we put in that position, and he's gone from playing in a back 4 as part of a pairing to a 3, which is a completely different kettle of fish, a completely different ball game, and therefore he's having to learn a new skill, a new trade, and getting exposed a little bit. I don't think it's got anything to do with him not being bothered. I think it's all down, like all of our problems this season, to square pegs round holes and stubbornness from the manager.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter two, because we know he's a quality player, and we've seen it ever since he's been here, and it is so frustrating because he's such a good player, but he's just not. Either something's not right, whether he's done something in training, his attitude's not right, or whether it's just Clough being ridiculously stubborn and not changing things. You look how long it took him to drop Akins. I think it's probably just down to being stubborn, but it is frustrating. But no, he's not a centre back. He's not a centre half. He never has been. He's always played that defensive midfield role that just sits in front of the back 4. And we've seen it last season. He played really well there. But when when we've had players out injured or suspended or whatever, he's had to fill in and he's done a job there, but he's always been more comfortable playing in front of that. And we've looked more solid when he has, because he plays as if he's a centre-back, but it gives us that, not box-to-box midfielder, obviously, he's not got the legs for that, but he's still in the right places to just like relieve the pressure on the defence. So getting back in his natural position, he'd probably be performing a lot better and maybe even getting in the side. But we need extra bodies in to do that, because if we go into a game thinking, right, O'Toole can only play in the centre mid, in a defensive centre mid, he can only play in the midfield, then we're actually a centre back short, which is something we've been saying all season. Yes, we brought Harbottle in, but you think we let Rawson go? And
no, we let a traffic cone go.
Get out of here.
Get my point. We've not, like we were saying before, we've not progressed. We've just filled gaps, and we've not brought in players to complement the side. We've brought in players because we've had to bring players in, which is we carried no momentum from the end of last season. Yes, we had a stinker in the playoff final, but look how we performed in the 2 games in the playoffs, and we've just lost every single bit of momentum that we'd had. And we put together a really good run, and then we just go and blow it because we've not got the depth. We've got a strong squad, don't get me wrong, but we've not got the depth that we need. You look, we're missing Reece Oates. Goals have dried up. It's frustrating because it seems that we're just going after Burton's B team essentially,
On the
and we're not.
On the issue of O'Toole, Alan, are you shaving his head? Is it a back 3 that's doing it? Is it a contract that is not bothered? Or is it, like Clough mentioned in his press a couple of weeks ago now, a stubbed toe which is taking longer to heal than anything else?
I just think he needs game time. Whether he shaves his head or not, I'd prefer him to shave his head because he seems to be a better player, seems to be more, O'Toole, if that makes sense. But can we go just to a point what Cam made earlier on about, the goals have dried up? How long ago is it? It's only a few weeks since we were the top goal scorers in the league, weren't it?
Really?
I'm sure it was. I'm sure
we were up there, but we were never the top. But
if that's the case, then Sky Bet League 2 must have had so many 1-0 wins this season. It's ridiculous. We are not a scoring team. We are. I mean, I was saving this rant for another podcast, and I will. But we are woeful in attack. We are nowhere near good enough in attack. We don't score enough goals, and we stumble our way through games. Should have been out of sight. 18 shots on Saturday.
I do remember
1 goal.
is when I first came on here, you always said if you're playing a back 3, it all depends who those back 3 are. You was on about Perch, weren't you? And who he'd got at the side of him when it, before it slowed down a little and probably had the injury. I mean, we don't know what the injury did to him, to be fair to him. But, you always said it all depends who's playing. And it's always come to fruition. It's true. If you get the right players in that position, when we had Triple H, we had a decent run together, didn't we? And then one or two got injured and we had to revert back to something else. But I just think, keep with it.
It's an interesting one. Clive, are you going to shave his head? Are you going to be the one to meet him after a game and get him in a headlock and pull the shearers out? Or
well, it shouldn't make any difference. But when we used to play against him, when he was other teams like Northampton, he had long hair and was a real thug. And then when he came here with his no hair, he was a bit of a thug. And now he's got a bank haircut. He's stopped being a thug. I want him to be a thug because we're short of thugs. I want him to be an intelligent thug. Otherwise, he's always going to be suspended. But I think he's a good enough player for us. I really do. And again, it's about that mix at the back. You need a bit of youthfulness alongside him. Down to Perch. I mean, there's more wrong with Perch than just a lack of pace.
Yeah.
Some of his decision making in recent games has been poor. He's been caught in possession in dangerous areas when he needn't have been.
I do wonder.
That's not the Perch we knew.
No, I do wonder. I'd love to get a medical expert on the panel, perhaps one week, to talk about injuries more in depth, because we don't, we as fans sort of see injuries and we don't properly understand the healing process. And with things like that. So, we could be talking about O'Toole not getting game time, and the stub toe may well be affecting him more than what we know. It could be causing him some considerable discomfort, but I think with an injury like Purchase, it's so complex. Similarly with Oates as well, but an injury like Purchase, it's not just the impacts it has physically, it's the impact it has mentally on your decision making. And we don't quite know how that's affected him longer term with things like decision making and things like that. So it would actually be quite good and interesting to get a medical expert on one time, but we can't do that right now because we've got 3.5 minutes left. So it's time to well, Martin's just said, Craig, let's put it to him, get his head shaved. I'm not personally going to tell him because I'm not that quick anymore. But you feel free. But we'll all chuck some money towards charity or something. I don't know.
I'm jealous. I wish I could grow my hair.
I'll tell you what. How about O'Toole shaves it off, keeps it, we send it off to a wig makers, and we give Alan O'Toole's hair.
Perfect.
Yeah, everyone's problem solved. It's sorted.
Yeah,
right, let's turn our attentions to podcast predictions. 2 lots today, because I don't know if we're going to be able to squeeze one in before Saturday's game at Colchester or not. So first and foremost, let's go with Everton on Wednesday night, and a reminder that if you say draw, you must predict the outcome of a penalty shootout as well. Alan, as the leader of the table,
I'm still there. That does surprise me.
Just about. I haven't seen the updated table though after from Saturday yet. So as the last leader of the table that I know of, you are first. Everton under 21s, Goodison Park. Prediction time, please.
Mansfield to win 2-1, 39th minute.
Okay, Cam, I'm going to come to you next.
Who won Stags win? 53rd minute.
Ooh, 53. Ooh. Okay, Clive, you're up next.
2-2 draw. Mansfield win penalties. First goal.
No,
30 minutes.
Don't want penalties. No.
How many minutes, Clive?
3-0, 30.
Oh, 30.
There we go. I am also going to go for a draw. I think it will be I'm going to go with Clive as well. I'm going to go 2-2 draw. And I think that it will be Everton who win on penalties. And I think the first goal will be in the 6th minute. 6 on its own, number 6. Nathan will give his predictions in the group chat. He's obviously not with us tonight. Let's move on to Colchester United. So let's go in reverse order. I'll go first. I think that the Stags will win. I think they'll find their scoring boots, and I think they'll win 3-0. And the first goal will come in the 14th minute. Cam, you're next.
You know what? I know how dire Colchester are, so I'm thinking 4-0 win Stags. Confident, but I've seen one of their games. They're pretty bad. At 12th minute.
Clive.
5-1. Mansfield win. 20th minute.
Where are these goals coming from? We've gone from not scoring to scoring probably the same amount that we've had all season.
Oates will get a hat-trick.
Alan.
2-0 Mansfield win, 19th minute.
There we go. And again, we'll get Nathan's in the week. We'll post that later in the week for you as well. That's pretty much all we've got time for tonight. But before we go, don't forget that the Stags are on the road again after Wednesday night's trip to Everton in December. They're off to see a few old faces, including, all right, it's Steve, I'm in Waitrose, and of course, Mr. Rose. And if you want to travel with the Stag Supporters Association, the coach on the day will leave at
and Mr. Reed.
10:30, I think. £15 for Amber and junior members, £20 for blue members, £25 for a non-member. And the number to text/call is
07967 689 597.
And if you're travelling with us to Everton on Wednesday night, you'll have all of us 4 on the same coach.
Whoa.
That's a genuine
coach to be avoided.
Well, it probably is. Well, that would be the fun bus because Alan will get his balls out for you to fondle, Clive, and me and Cam might put together some form of quiz. So there you go.
I'm going to offer Alan
Will we?
my digital balls if he wants to use them.
Oh,
Because otherwise, we're having
only
them bouncing all over the
Oh,
floor like we did last time.
Only digital ones.
Is it easy to work, Clive?
It's dead easy.
Technology aren't very good.
We'll help you. It's dead easy. And I
Right.
think all you got to do is bring some bingo tickets and some pens.
Right. Okay.
So I think
Well,
there's
there
two
we
go.
coaches going, Craig, isn't there, from SSA?
For Everton, yeah, I think there is. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. So
And I
make
think
sure you
they're
get on
both
ours
24
for
as well.
entertainment. Yes. So get on ours for the entertainment and enjoy yourself. Right, that's all we've got time for tonight. As always, thanks very much for getting involved. Podcast predictions link is in the description. 1 hour, 1 minute before. You know all the crap by now. I'll say it again in a minute when I press play on this video anyway, so I don't know why I'm saying it now. One thing is for sure, though, if Nigel Clough was out walking his dog tonight and we was listening to the podcast or whenever he's listening to this, which of course I've got my suspicions that he does, and we're talking about defenders and square pegs, round holes, and investing in January and things like that, he'll be having a little chuckle to himself because he's thinking, I've got a trump card up my sleeve. It's Ollie Clark at centre back. Ponder on that one, and we'll see you next time. So there you have it. There's the full-time whistle on another Mansfield podcast tonight. Thanks, as always, to you for watching and listening at home. And, of course, to the Mansfield Matters panel. We'll hopefully try and squeeze one in, but it will be a pre-recorded one, before Colchester at home on Saturday. But if we don't worry, we'll catch up later on in the week as we reflect on the Papa John's Trophy, a league game against Colchester, and much more in between, with the countdown to Christmas well and truly on. As always, if you want to play along with podcast predictions, the link that you need is in the description. You must do it no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kick-off prior to each game, and we'll put the ones for Colchester on Thursday. Make sure you keep an eye on our social media pages to know when that one is open. Right, that's it. I'm off to try and find something to watch now. I'm a Celebrity's finished. Cam tells me that Hollyoaks is quite good to catch up on. I think I'd rather watch Chesterfield. Good night.